As the tough guy who performs his own stunts, Jason Statham is well known. However, a distinct story takes place behind the scenes. Medical records that revealed the true cost of his risky job first appeared in 2025. Concussions, broken ribs, and a fractured wrist that never fully healed. Recently, Rosie, his wife, insisted that he cease performing certain acts. For what reason? Because both of them were frightened by something the physicians told them. The man who has survived numerous battles, beatings, and drowning now confronts his greatest adversary to far. He is also unable to battle his way out of it this time. He was born in Shirebrook, Derbyshire, on July 26, 1967. The community didn't give dreams, only work that broke people's hearts and dreams. The terrain in the men's lungs had been molded by coal mining. Jason Statham entered a world that prioritized survival over comfort. Barry Statham, his father, was born in 1939 and experienced the harshest winters and lowest wages in British history. Barry was juggling everything that brought in money by the time Jason was born. When local jobs dried up on the Canary Islands, people turned to street hawking, house painting, coal mining, and even lounge singing. He had no luxury in making a decision. He would do it if it paid. Professional dancer Eileen Yates, Jason's mother, added vigor and rhythm to an otherwise sour working-class routine. She sang under cheap spotlights in pubs and dimly lit lounges as her husband fought for money on the streets. Jason stood on the sidelines, watching both universes. He saw flair and dirt and stage lights and struggle. Their house was not damaged. It simply would not halt its motion. Barry would sing, Jason would play the drums to keep time, and his brother Lee would play guitar. It resembled their own small show, born out of need rather than celebrity. They left Shirebrook when they were 10 years old and relocated to Great Yarmouth, a seaside town crowded with tourists, stalls, and noise. Barry reopened his business, selling low-cost products to people in the open marketplaces. It was hard, rapid, and dangerous labor. Observing him taught Jason everything. Know when to push and when to back off, and how to read people. He could have been a full-time employee, but he chose not to. Another option he picked: martial arts. Jason started training at the age of 11. Chinese martial arts, karate, and kickboxing. He controlled all the pressure inside of him by practicing every day. Later, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Judo, Krav Maga, and Muay Thai emerged. He earned his black belt in karate and became proficient in grips like the Kesagatami and throws like the Seo Najing. He was able to avoid difficulty because of the discipline. He was sharper than others because of it. He was precise in addition to being strong. And he had power because of his precision. He met Vinnie Jones while attending school. Back then, they were just gritted boys wearing cleats, they were not famous. From 1978 to 1983, Jason was a forward. He learned another kind of discipline on the football field: strategy, timing, and teamwork. Sport wasn't all of it. It was an additional means of surviving and gaining control in a world that offered no certainties. He carried that mindset throughout all he did. Jason started diving when he was 12 years old. Professionally, not just for fun. During 12 years of training with the Great Britain national swimming team, he became proficient in dives from 1 to 3 and 10 meters. He participated in the Commonwealth Games in New Zealand in 1990 at the age of 23. He finished 8th in the one naming Twitter platform, 11th in the 3 men, and 12th in the one naming Twitter platform. He only scored 13.86 during a single dive. He was given a 0.5 by an English assessor. It was painful. He knew why he was not selected for the Olympics. His start was too late. He was sharpened even by that defeat, though. He continued to sell jewelry and bogus perfume on the side with his father while he was training. This was no enjoyable weekend grind. The struggle for survival was relentless. Hope that someone would buy what you were selling while standing on sidewalks in any weather. It seemed like a way out when modeling called. He secured campaigns for Levis, Griffin, and Tommy Hilfiger in 1996 and 1997. Though it paid little and didn't go anywhere quickly, it appeared to be a success. Then all of that changed. Guy Ritchie sought someone who could portray a true hustler for lock, stock, and two smoking barrels. Someone without the need to act. Someone with real-world street sales experience. Jason wasn't only correct. He played the part. He played Bacon and was paid $5,000. The movie burst. He made $15,000 for Snatch 2 years later. His career took off because he had already experienced acting, not because he learned how to do it. While competing for England at the Commonwealth Games in Auckland in 1990, Jason Statham stepped on the edge of a diving board. He finished 11th in the 3 and 10 meter dives and 9th in the 1 meter competition. Something else emerged from the sea, but those scores didn't result in medals. His presence, his body, and his equilibrium. A scout at London's Crystal Palace sensed that presence. Shortly after, in 1996, he was paid $5,000 each advertisement by Tommy Hilfiger, Levi's, and Griffin to jump off platforms rather than pose in front of a camera. Although that money sounded excellent, it didn't go very far in London. He had been selected by modeling, not the other way around. And he was only getting jobs because his body still had the appearance of an athlete's. French Connection had stopped looking for models by 1997. They were looking for someone who wasn't fashionable and was harsher. Statham's raw was just right. He became the face of their FQ campaign with his square jaw, buzzed hairdo, and sardonic look. Although there were posters of him glaring from shopfronts and alley walls all throughout the city, his annual salary was barely $10,000. It was insufficient to advance, only enough to hang on. Like his father, he worked hard despite having a famous face and a half-empty refrigerator. Copying the methods he'd seen as a youngster, he peddled imitation jewelry and perfume on Oxford Street. A quick anecdote, a show of confidence, and a charm offensive that deterred tourists. He earned $200 some days. It was money for survival. It wasn't safe, though. He gave a fake Rolex to 2 customers who were actually undercover cops in 1996. He was not alarmed. His smile said it all. He told a joke. He used only words to get out of the handcuffs. He learned a lesson from that escape. Hold still, speak, and take charge of the situation when the pressure builds. Later on, he would use that composed resistance as a defining characteristic in every movie audition. But there were music videos before movies. The Shaman produced a rave-style video titled Coming On in 1993. Unpredictable and spontaneous, Statham danced in Brighton under club lights while wearing shimmering leopard briefs. Eraser reappeared half-naked in the 1994 film Run to the Sun. He was moving in sync with the music, like if he was made for the camera rather than the pool, this time in a gilded cage on the beach. Yet no one referred to him as an actor. All he was a moving body. However, something was evolving. Guy Ritchie was searching in 1997 for genuineness. Polished actors were not what he desired. He desired a street. He desired a person who could convince him of a falsehood. Statham arrived hurriedly rather than with a resume. On the spot, Ritchie asked him to sell phony items. He earned the position because of how well he performed. It wasn't a stretch for Bacon, a shrewd gambler with lock, stock, and 2 blazing barrels. Jason was being himself. His salary was $20,000. Not much, but more than any scramble for perfume. Additionally, it included credits for the first time. The movie was chaotic. A $800,000 budget was used to shoot at actual East End bars, and the actors improvised scenarios while locals jeered in the background. Statham relied more on instincts than lines. In one scene, he used a shotgun to smash a car window, reflecting fights he had previously avoided in real life. Not even the nerves were phony. Ritchie urged that the chaos become magical. However, after shooting Rap, Statham was almost edited out by the producers. They referred to his dialect as unpolished because it was too rough in East End. Ritchie remained steadfast. He made a concerted effort to preserve Jason's authentic, flawed voice. Statham's scowl became quickly famous when Lock, Stock debuted in theaters in August 1998, earning $3.9 million in the UK. Ritchie gave him another call for Steel 2 years later. This time, he wasn't a supporting role. Playing Turkish, he navigated a diamond theft and gang battles as a boxing promoter. Its budget was increased to $10 million. Statham sustained more bruises, more antics, and more lines. In one fight scene in an old London gym, he broke 2 ribs. No complaints, no stuntman. Benicio del Toro and Brad Pitt were among the cast members, and the mayhem was genuine. They shot in buildings that were falling apart and in alleys. Each frame had the appearance of having been pulled out of the ground. $83.6 million was made worldwide by the movie. Previously seen on cheap perfume stands, that visage was suddenly featured on movie posters all over the world. However, not everything worked out behind the scenes. A threat against Del Toro's character was improvised by Statham during the 1999 reshoots. Del Toro was unaware that it was improv. He believed it to be personal. The tension erupted. The words flowed. To defuse the situation, Ritchie had to intervene. The tension was what made that fight scream, not the fight itself. Something remained unspoken between the lines, causing their scenes to crackle. Afterwards, Statham acknowledged that he nearly went overboard. He always walked that line, though. Real, unadulterated, dangerous. When Jason Statham arrived on the set of The Transporter in 2002, he was keen to show that action heroes didn't require stunt doubles, wires, or computer-generated imagery. Everything was altered by a single scene in a filthy bus station. Drenched in oil, he repelled assailants for 15 terrible takes. It wasn't just for show. He executed every maneuver, kick, and fall himself. By the end, he was so wounded in the ribs that breathing was painful. Camera cheats did not exist. He had received martial arts instruction from director Corey Ewan for 2 months prior to the start of the filming. And that preparation resulted in one of the movie's most talked about scenes. Not only did the oil conflict appear genuine, it was. That degree of danger wasn't an isolated incident. Even more vivid were the scenes involving the vehicle chase. Statham negotiated a contract that prohibited stunt doubles for driving, despite having a $20 million budget and a realistic vision. That's indeed him behind the wheel when you watch him reverse through the congested, narrow streets of Marseille at around 80 miles per hour. There is no controlled track or green screen. To prevent mishaps, the crew had to film during local rush hour. A single false turn would have resulted in sirens and twisted metal, but it didn't. His fame began when the movie earned $43.5 million worldwide. Transporter 2 increased the stakes once more 3 years later. Statham used only suction cups to climb a 10-story building in Miami. No backup, no cables. The hold slipped midway up. He dropped 20 feet. His ankle injury was so severe that he spent a week in the hospital. The harm was already done when they used a stunt double to complete the action. He struggled through moments that required strength and quickness, but he didn't give up. Later on, director Louisier acknowledged that the maneuver should never have been tried without unsuccessful saves. Statham's career was on the verge of ending, but that was his call. Then there was the plane battle. In a virtual jet with actual G-force hydraulics, he fought turbulence in the Transporter 2 climax. It was extremely difficult to choreograph, cramped, and chaotic. Off camera, however, there was a different kind of conflict. His co-star Shuei declined a planned kiss because of cultural differences. Mid-production, the sequence had to be reworked. Reshoots are planned, dialogue is dropped. They managed to keep the flow going despite the tension. The film maintained its high-octane reputation and made $85.1 million. Transporter 3 took him to Ukraine in 2008 for one of the riskiest feats to date. He was handcuffed to a truck and had a dislocated shoulder. He ran through scenes without the use of any artificial techniques, crashed into actual barriers, and ran across rough roads. Each blow was harsher than the last. Fans adored the rawness, as evidenced by the statistics, but some criticized the brutality as being excessive. $18.5 million in total. There was pain involved. Even though it took months for his shoulder to heal completely, he never requested a stand-in. He continued without stopping. He starred in the heist movie The Bank Job, which was based on the theft of Lloyd's Bank in 1971, that same year. The team discovered during production that the declassification of MI5 files related to the actual theft had just occurred. The records revealed a government cover-up involving a member of the royal family whose images had been stolen. It changed the stakes. The set was observed by MI5. The producers employed guards. The story became more authentic than it had been before. People were spooked. It made news, though. Statham was not merely a thief. The administration attempted to hide the story he was recounting. In Death Race, the same bravery was evident. Without gloves, Statham performed his own burnouts while racing armored automobiles at high speeds. Hot metal burned against his hands. In one scene, Statham crashed into a guard with such power that the guard's head was severed by a prop. The MPAA almost stopped it. The most violent moment in the movie was released unaltered despite the producer's resistance to the demands of the censors. The profit was $75.8 million. It was nearly too lifelike, according to some. Statham was repeatedly reminded to wear safety gear by his staff. He did not. Despite the pain, he wanted it raw. Then war broke out. Jet Li and Jason Statham engaged in a well-practiced sword fight. Statham's arm was severed by the blade in a single slip. Blood flowed. 12 stitches. He ought to have given up. Rather, he spent an additional 12 hours filming. His shirt clung to the cut. The filmmaker proposed to stop the production. No, he said. That scar remained intact. Neither did the narrative. It served as a reminder that he wasn't playing alone. He was tenacious. The threat followed him even while he wasn't in the Transporter series. He drove a Mini Cooper through the metro tunnels in Los Angeles while working in Italy. With almost 200 takes, they shot it in 32 automobiles. One of them then submerged. Statham became stuck in a flooded tunnel due to a malfunctioning rig. He was rescued by the crew just as he was about to drown. It was the closest he had ever been to death on a set, he subsequently acknowledged. Despite saying, "I shouldn't have done it," he did it. Things become much more bizarre in Crank. He portrayed a hitman who had to maintain a high level of adrenaline or perish. He so swerved through actual traffic on the 110 and sprinted over actual, barricaded Los Angeles roads. Vehicles veered. One ran into the other. The filming ceased. They filed lawsuits. The photo made the final edit, but the crew bought off irate drivers. It was risky, careless, and remembered. The turmoil was the narrative, not merely a part of it. Playing knife-throwing mercenary Lee Christmas when Jason Statham joined the Expendables in 2010, he was aware that the movie would be a crazy blend of vintage action, explosions, and ego. However, he was unprepared to almost drown 3 years later. The brakes on the flatbed truck he was operating failed in 2013 while filming Expendables 3 in Bulgaria. Off a dock, the car blasted into the Black Sea. Statham was twisted in his own holster, trapped, sinking, and only seconds away from losing consciousness before he slid through a window and swam away. He described the experience as unpleasant and altered his perspective on stunts. However, he didn't stop. After changing, he returned to the set. Because he had competed in the Commonwealth Games as a diver, he was able to survive. His life was saved by his background. Later, Sylvester Stallone stated frankly, Jason was a goner if he didn't know how to swim like that. The incident led to lawsuits and made the production team re-evaluate safety. The situation had been too real before. When Statham was filming The Mechanic, a 2011 remake centered on precision assassinations, he sought for authenticity. Due in part to his refusal to employ CGI to simulate explosions, the budget skyrocketed to $50 million. When an actual bomb went wrong, a stunt coordinator was hurt. Another almost struck him. The filmmaker subsequently acknowledged that Statham's decision to employ practical effects was his idea. This decision added grit to the film but cost actual blood. As the sequel came out, both the stunts and the accidents became increasingly risky. Statham first appeared fully as Deckard Shaw in the 2013 film Fast and Furious 6. Driving an automobile off a 260-foot ramp in a situation designed to resemble an aircraft crash was one of the last feats. The automobile was flipped by windshaw on the day of filming. After suffering whiplash, Statham spent 2 weeks in the hospital. He later referred to it as one of the riskiest things he had ever done, saying the injuries made him realize how powerless you truly are in certain situations. Then came the 2018 big-budget shark thriller, The Meg, which had a prehistoric bite. He almost died after one underwater trick. The equipment broke under the strain of recording in a diving cage, trapping him 45 feet below the surface. It took him 45 seconds to break away. Despite his genuine panic, he remained composed, surfaced, and continued. No retreat, no double. The $150 million picture became one of the most profitable shark movies ever filmed, with a global box office total of $530 million. The shoot was horrifying, according to Statham, in a manner that fight scenes were never. Sharks don't follow orders. Resuscitation in mechanics. In 2016, he advanced that way of thinking. In one of the movie's most memorable scenes, he scales a tower in Malaysia without any safety equipment. He accomplished that, in fact, in real life. Early takes did not have harnesses. He slipped, fell 30 feet, and hit concrete hard. The concussion delayed work and necessitated a rethink of scenes. Later, he discreetly acknowledged that many injuries like that were dismissed on set, but he persisted. He stated, "Stunt actors put their lives on the line every day and barely get noticed." After the Crow incident, many felt safety was tighter. But on Statham's sets, danger was still part of the deal. Stunts weren't always dangerous. In 2015, during Spy, a sharp comedy meant to lampoon his customary tough guy persona, things grew ugly when director Paul rewrote the script without warning. Statham walked off set for a day. In the $65 million production, the altercation rocked it. It was the only occasion, according to the crew, that Statham really lost his temper. He returned and his performance ended up being one of the most appreciated in the picture, balancing deadpan timing with action roughness. But it also indicated how concerned he was about breaking tight. In Samoa that year, he hit 100 Mattis Tempin on a motorcycle for a pursuit scene while filming Hobbs and Shaw. The bike struck a pothole, propelled him over the pavement, and shattered his wrist. He kept going. He made no call for a double. After recovering, he returned to do the stunt. His refusal to pretend to be anything inspired both loyalty and concern, according to crew members. He began to draw flack for turning down dramatic roles in the 2010s. "I don't like playing soft characters," he declared when he declined an audition for The Dark Knight. It worked, despite what some labeled short-sightedness. Using only fists, scars, and box office figures, he established a $20 million of film brand that was independent of awards. He once said, "I'm not here to act like someone else. I'm here to show what happens when someone pushes back." In 1997, before all the fame, he met model Kelly Brook on a photo shoot. They started dating and stayed together for 7 years. He proposed in 2004. Weeks later, she called it off after being photographed with Billy Zane on the French Riviera. Statham was crushed. Friends said he felt humiliated. Brook later said they might have lasted if they weren't in the spotlight. He never spoke publicly about it except once when he said he felt like a cuckold. It stuck with him. Then came model Sophie Da. They lasted 6 months in 2005. She said his workout routines and filming schedules made him emotionally distant. By August 2006, they ended things. She later said the passion was real, but the future wasn't. He met Rosie Huntington Whitley in 2010. They went public fast, but in 2011, after a fight at the Transformers premiere, they split. They got back together, but the reconciliation nearly fell apart during a high-speed paparazzi chase in Los Angeles. Rosie said it was the moment they realized fame could literally be deadly. They stuck together. In 2017, they had a son, Jack Oscar. Rosie gave birth at home in LA as Statham was filming Meg 2 in 2020 and was gone for months. Rosie admitted the distance nearly broke them. they started therapy. It helped. She said they learned how to protect each other from the spotlight and themselves. In 2022, they bought a $14 million mansion in Beverly Hills. By 2023, drones were flying over their backyard. One came within inches of a window. Rosie said it made her demand stunt limits. Statham once threw a shoe at a drone. It didn't help. The invasions continued. In January 2024, the beekeeper opened quietly and exploded. On a $40 million budget, it grossed $162 million. Statham played a retired assassin hunting scammers. He was allergic to bees, but did every scene himself. He kept EpiPens on him and suffered mild reactions on set. He never used a double. He said beekeeping was scarier than anything he'd done before. A sequel was greenlit before the year ended. In 2025, he starred in A Working Man directed by David Ayer. It topped the MGM Plus charts. Behind the scenes, Statham mentored 12 young stunt performers, taught them safety protocols, and insisted on on-set medical staff. He'd been hospitalized for 3 days during a separate project in 2023 and didn't want anyone else to face that. Studios began following his lead. By 2025, his films had made over $8.5 billion globally. The Meg earned $530 million. Hobbs & Shaw made $760 million. The Expendables franchise crossed $1.2 billion, but his biggest regret wasn't financial. In 2006, he passed on auditioning for James Bond. The studio said 39 was too old. In 2024, he told a podcast he should have fought harder. That rejection made him rewrite what an action hero could be. In 2020, he donated $1 million to UK diving programs. He said diving kept him off the streets and gave him purpose as a teenager. By 2022, over 1/200 scholarships had been funded. In 2025, death hoaxes claimed he drowned in a Texas flood and died in a car crash. They were all fake. He was in Italy posting vacation photos while headlines ran his obituary. It became a joke, but also a reminder that people are always watching, even when they shouldn't be. In 2025, he wrapped filming Levin's Trade, written by Sylvester Stallone and based on Chuck Dixon's novel. It comes out January 17, 2025. Statham plays Levon Cade, a quiet former Special Forces man dragged back into violence. It's darker, less flashy, more personal. It's meant to shift his image again.